Welcome to the Shedding Your Skin webinar. Truly, miracles have been happening in the last 24 hours, and I'll share those with you. But I want to thank Lynette for carrying the ball there to welcome you all in, and I want to thank Bev for all the work in the background that she's doing. And I want to thank you for trusting me enough to come in today and spend a couple hours this afternoon learning how to really shift our focus from our human role to our roles as souls in human bodies. Shedding our skin is all about making that shift, and I'm going to be sharing a lot of very exciting stories from the spirit world. I don't like calling them stories because it makes it seem like they're not true, but you'll enjoy the magical moments with me and hopefully a lot of learning. We'll also have a very great tool that I'm going to teach you that will give you a way to instantly stop your brain from being hyper alert after a trauma. And I'm going to guide you through a meditation to help you identify something in you that may be blocking your full light from shining and bring in more light, how to clear that out. So I'm still waiting on Bev here before we really get rolling. Nothing yet. All right. Goodness, let me see. So I will tell you that most of the events that transpired that I'm going to share with you this afternoon happened a few years ago. And I shared it in a presentation at Unity Village and then never shared it again. So anybody who was at my what was it called then? Making the Connection retreat at Unity Village in 2016 will have heard the Shedding Your Skin webinar, but there is a lot of new material here and some other material at the very beginning I'm going back over again because it's important foundational information to understand what follows. I'm still waiting on that number from Bev. Okay. Thank you, Lynette. Truly, I don't want to interrupt what we're doing here. I know what to do. I'm going to bring in our special guest and I'm sure that the number will come in as we're talking. So I want to introduce Victoria Weston. She is the Director of Fundraising for Homes for Our Troops. Victoria, I believe if you just talk, you'll come on screen.
Hi, everyone. How are you all doing today?
Okay. And Victoria did not have any idea that we were conducting a fundraiser. I just called her a few days ago and said that we've been raising funds already for your organization and that we would like to make a donation for this wonderful cause. And I thought it'd be wonderful if somebody from Homes for Our Troops came in and told us what the organization is all about. So Victoria, why don't you take a minute here and let everybody know what their wonderful donations have gone to.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Suzanne, and your husband, Ty, for this great opportunity to be here. Thank you, Lynette, for getting us going this morning, and Bev for getting me hooked up. And thank you to all the wonderful people out there around the world and in the United States who are here for this amazing afternoon together or evening, depending on where you are, or morning. And I just want to take a moment and let you know about Homes for Our Troops. We are a national public nonprofit located in Taunton, Massachusetts. We build and donate specially adapted homes for severely injured post 9/11 American veterans so that they may rebuild their lives. Now, I say public, and that gives a little bit of a misinformation because when people hear the word public, they think that we're government assisted, and we're not. All of the money that we receive that goes directly to help building our homes comes from corporate partnership, grants, donors, and fundraisers like this. So the money that you all donated to our organization today goes directly to helping build these homes for our veterans. And nearly 90 cents of every dollar donated goes directly to our mission of building homes and, more importantly, rebuilding lives. So we feel that building the home is the first step to help give these veterans back their life here in the United States. However, it's much more than that. The rebuilding lives part is the real main aspect of the importance of our mission. Once we build the home and turn over the keys, we do not leave. We are then with the veteran through as long as they want us to be, which is usually the lifetime. We help with the warranty of their home, with the actual home. If they need anything, we're there for the milestones of graduations from high school, graduations from the veterans from college, the caregiver from college, marriages, babies. And we're also there for the sorrows. We're there for the heartbreak. We're there when the veterans struggle. We're there for instance, we recently lost one of our HFOT family members, one of our veterans. His son succumbed to cancer at just 10 years old. So we're there through all the good and the bad because they are our family. These veterans have done such a sacrifice to the United States and actually other parts of the world. And we are so grateful for them. And just like they are family, we all think of you as family. Anybody that donates to our mission or volunteers with our mission, you are a part of our family, because without you, we could not advance our mission. So each and every person on this call is vitally important. I am grateful from the bottom of my heart. This was a beautiful surprise that came in this week. I told Suzanne, not only am I grateful for the fact that this is a wonderful fundraising opportunity and you have donated so much money to our organization, but this kind of thing is very near and dear to my heart. I believe in the spiritual, the realm, miracles can happen, all of that. So I said to her, it was kind of like a Christmas gift in February when I found out that this amazing fundraiser was coming to us and that it was such a cool venue and that I get to be part of this community today. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. Home Star Troops appreciate you. So does our veterans. And Suzanne will have the information if you'd like or have any more questions. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Victoria. You don't need to leave yet because Bev, oh wait, she's typing. She may not have the bottom line, but I have some. I just looked while you were talking and oh, I thought so. Holy moly. So everybody, I want you to know when I called Victoria earlier this week, I told her that we absolutely had $12,000 already. That's what we had brought in. And I really hoped that we would get to $15,000 by today. And then these miracles happened that I know was a setup from Spirit yesterday. And the bottom line is, Victoria, thanks to everybody participating today, we are going to be sending you a check for $35,000.
Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead and speak.
I don't even know what to say. Like, this is such, I have chills and I'm crying. And as you can tell, I'm a very passionate and emotional person. And this is such a, I don't even know, I'm kind of speechless. And if you were to know me, you would know I'm not speechless. So from the bottom, this means so much to us. And it really is amazing that this is not only a United States effort, but the people all over the world are coming in and helping our veterans. I was amazed at the $12,000. So the fact that it's 35, there aren't enough words, expressions, or thank yous that I can give to Suzanne and her husband and the people that organized this, and all of you that are out there watching this. Truly not enough words of thank you and appreciation and gratitude from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And to everybody in your organization, our thank you, because I know that you all work really hard to help everybody that you help. So thank you. And my big apologies to Bev for putting her under the thumb like that. I half an hour ago tried to download the report and it just, I think we've overloaded PayPal and the money was still coming into the last minute. And I knew it was going to be big, so I knew it would be worth the effort. So thank you all for your patience. And now I can focus on the workshop, a whole different flow. So I know the guide said it would go about 2 hours and we'll probably go 2 hours from now. We'll see how it works out. But Bev, would you just come on so I can thank you?
Oh, okay. I'm here. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you for your patience as I'm trying to work with the spreadsheet.
And to get everybody an extra link, she's going to put a link on the website so that people who didn't get their link will be able to find it. All righty. So could we take a moment, please? I'd like to do an invocation that'll help us all shift gears and get into the flow of what we're about to share here. I'm going to go to full screen here. All right, let's just all take a deep breath together and move your awareness to the heart. I, for one, am immensely grateful for all of you. I'm immensely grateful for Spirit and what they've given to be shared today. So I'd like you to just become aware of the light that's in your heart and how it connects everybody. We have 1,000 people right now live, and 1,600 eventually will be joining us if they can't be live. And that is just one big web of kindred spirits joined together around the globe to celebrate the fact that we are both souls and human beings. May each of us gathered here together feel that connection, feel the loving energy that we're all sending to each other, and may we be buoyed by that. May we each learn something that we need to hear at this human level, what our soul already knows, and may we leave this time together uplifted, recharged, and ready to apply what Spirit has in store for us. And with love and gratitude for coming together, we celebrate. And so it is. All right. Well, this is going to be like one of the presentations that I give when I can use slides. So I'm actually going to be sharing my screen for the whole time. You'll see me in a little corner up there, but I'd like you to enjoy the visuals that go with this. So please bear with me just a moment as I bring up the slides. Okay, and here we go. Very good, we got it working. So, shedding your skin is the name of the presentation. And you'll understand more about what I mean by that as we go along. We've already given our thanks to all of you for that. And it is obvious to most of you who know my background why this is a very special cause for Ty and I. This is a picture of my husband, Ty, with his daughter, Susan, my stepdaughter. She was struck and killed by lightning in 2006. And my entire spiritual path has unfolded as a result of that. I just recently gave a talk to Helping Parents Heal Fathers group, all men, a lot of whom were newly bereaved parents. We call them shining light parents. And I wanted to make sure that when they heard that I'm a medium, they didn't immediately just dismiss me. So I put together a few slides of my background, and I thought, you know, that's a good way to open up this for those of you who just need to understand that we can go from the most left brain background possible and fully embrace our aspects as souls. So these are just a few of the slides. Some of you have seen these before in my slideshows. But this was me in my last job in the Navy as the aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And it was a very cool job. Here I am carrying the head of the United States military's briefcase up the stairs of the Pentagon and landing on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Persian Gulf. That's me hopping off the helicopter there after we just landed. And here I am working right with the chairman, giving him what he needs to help our sailors on the aircraft carrier. Here I am meeting with the president back there when I was the aide. It was just the most amazing tour of duty, and flying on Air Force One, of course, was a career highlight for me. But that career can't even compare to this career now, if you want to call it a career, the work that I do now. But it was pretty cool to have the ear of the leader of the United States military. But I tell everybody, I didn't let it go to my head, because I may have told him what we needed to do next, but this is the look he gave me most of the time. So now I answer to a much higher authority, and that's all of those in spirit. Everybody's family members who have passed, I try to let everybody know that they are as close as your breath. I had no idea that I was a medium before Susan passed. She's the one in the upper left-hand corner here. And I have since brought through Susan and so many loved ones with beautiful evidence. And I'll be sharing a beautiful piece of the most recent evidence later on this afternoon. But the important point about all of this is all of that is simply my story. What I've really come to know is that is just one aspect of me, and a very limited aspect, and each of you is enacting a story. It can be no other way while you're in a human body. We have to take on a role, like a character in a play, and that role can have a lot of ups and downs. But what brings us great peace and joy is when we realize that beneath the story, we truly are light beings beings of light. Now, these next few slides, again, I've shared this in a presentation I have called Magnificent You that's online, but it's really important to understand what we mean when we say, I am the light, or we are beings of light. And it's just like if you were to shine a light like this Christmas light on a tree in the darkness, the tree would light up, but what about the places where there is no tree? Where does the light go then? Well, the light is still there. It just needs something to reflect upon, to be known. And so all of us are reflections of this light that may appear to be pure darkness. Light is synonymous with awareness, with consciousness. So what we have is this vast sea of pure potential for anything to come out of what appears to be darkness, but is actually consciousness, the light. So this apparent darkness, this sea of consciousness, is self-aware and infinitely creative and intelligent, and anything at all can arise from it. And just like any of you who may be artists or authors, writers, musicians, you know that when you have this potential and this creativity and this beauty welling up within you, it just has to be expressed. It's just bursting to come out. And that's exactly what happens moment by moment in this field from which we, in our roles as our stories, arise. And so this original field of pure potential burst forth in the original thought, and we'll just call this a thought bubble that was projected out from the apparent darkness. And because it is a creation and a reflection of itself, of its true nature, this thought is self-aware. This creation is self-aware. And because it is creative, thoughts create more thoughts. And this original thought created thoughts. And now we have two self-aware creative thought bubbles that arise from the sea of consciousness. So for these two original, apparently separate ideas of the source that become aware of each other, it is like looking in a mirror. They're reflecting back upon themselves. What's it like when you look in the eyes of a lover or a child? What do you see reflected back at you? Sometimes you can't even put words to it. But there's a feeling, isn't it? It's something your soul already knows. So we do put a word to it, and we call it love. And it's this innate knowing that we are all connected, that we are not separate, even though we may appear that way when we pay attention to the skin around the story. So these two self-aware aspects of the original sea of consciousness that now know what connection feels like, what love feels like, they have that same need to burst forth and create. And so they do, and they do, and they do, and they keep dividing and reflecting and multiplying. And we're going to call them souls, because you, as this self-aware being that we could call source, or we could call consciousness, or we could call God, or we could call joy, whatever you want to call it, creates mirror images to love, to enjoy that connection. And we end up with so many expressions of joy to reflect that we have now the light instead of what appears to be darkness. And from these creations, matter evolves. And down the line, beings that you and I would recognize. So that's just a brief run through, a metaphor of how you and I are sitting here using our creative minds and connecting our light-filled hearts as souls in a human body inside our skin. When underneath it all, under the story, we're projecting the reflection. So every one of us here today has a story, a unique story, and it's changing and bubbling up all the time, and new stories are coming up all the time. And here it says, I hope you can read it, some of you are getting so absorbed in your story, in looking outward, that you don't remember who we are. And that's the challenge when we get in a human suit, isn't it? Then we get caught up in the drama until we look inward and remember our source. But until then, life can be a bit unsettling. And I know we all know what that's all about. But it's the practice of meditation here that reminded me the part of all of us that never goes away, that never leaves us. It just gets a little bit buried under the human conditioning. When we go inside and stop looking outward, we go inward and we remember who we are. This is my dear friend Brenda. She had a beautiful awakening before she passed, and she absolutely remembered, I am a beautiful soul. And she went around telling everybody, I am free. She was free on the inside, but on the outside, her body became quite ill with cancer. And this is a very touching photo taken as she took her final breaths. And I'm sorry, Lynette, because that's a hard one to see. And that Lynette's hands are in that photo because she was there with Brenda as she took her final breaths. But you know what? Brenda was not stuck in that body. She was celebrating. And I'm not going to tell the boa story today. I've told it over and over, but I want you to hear it, because it's what proves to me these are people suits. This is just skin encompassing a beautiful idea of the Creator. So you can go to my video page after this talk anytime in the future and watch the video from the IANS talk where I explain how Brenda came back within 24 hours of her physical body dying, and using the metaphor of a boa, like you flip over your shoulder, prove to all of us who know and love her, she didn't die, she's right here. And these really are people suits that we take off. And I bring up Brenda because some of the teaching that she's shared since she crossed the veil is very relevant now as we shift into why this talk is called Shedding Your Skin. And she said to me, this quote from Across the Veil, most people, Suzanne, are walking wounded. And I just heard a bunch of you say, you can say that again. But Brenda says, you can see the scars from up here across the veil. They're like little knife wounds all over the auras. They're battle scars, but that light never does go out, just like you always say. We really are the light. And I thought that was just the most beautiful analogy that she used to say that, you know, we can't get through this life unscathed, no matter who we are, no matter what we know. And that those in spirit see the wounds that we carry as humans, but the light is still seen across the veil, if only we will see it. And I just love this picture because it reminds me, this woman has a blindfold on, and that's pretty much what happens when we start to become conditioned by our human belief system and by believing we're only the body. But look at these rays, these arcs of light flowing in here. There's more reality to this picture than you would think. It's a stunning photo. And all we have to do is metaphorically rip off the blindfold and remember that we are not just human down at the bottom level of this diagram here, but also souls at the same time. And that we're all connected to this one mind, that field of pure intelligent creativity. We're not separate from it. We are it in a temporary, limited form. That's what's really important to remember. The body is an instrument like this flute for the light, for consciousness, for spirit, for God, for joy to express itself. Your body is God's instrument. And I played the flute for many, many years. I still play it. And it can get a little gunked up if you don't clean it out every once in a while. And boy, can't the body too. And that shows up as illness, and that shows up as depression, and that shows up as anger, and all these other human things that are very human. But those are not bad, those less than positive vibrations. They're not wrong. They're indicators that you're not in tune with your true nature. And so workshops like this one and the whole spiritual path is all about helping us clear the instrument so that we can be as harmonious as possible, so that when our loved ones across the veil come knocking on our door, literally knocking on our head, I'm right here, we can actually sense their presence. And I said that when your vessel is clear, it is like flipping a switch and you can tune into your loved ones. I tune into Brenda every day before I do my readings, and we play a game. Tell me what's going on with Lynette right now. And just like that, with no rituals, she gives me evidence. And it's just something fun we do, but this is way more than just fun. This is sacred to know who we are. So what I'm going to share with you is this series of events that happened in 2016 that showed me we are all part of an incredible web of connections, and the creativity of higher beings to show us what we need, to put it in our face, will knock your socks off. So I'm going to be sharing my stories in an effort to open your mind to how you are part of this web as well, and to give you tools to clear out your instrument. So this story happened while Ty and I were on our Messages of Hope tour. We go every year for about half the year in our big bus that you see here, towing the car behind it. And we go all around the country, and I do events. And this was the tour route in 2016. Every one of those green buttons there was a stop along the tour. But this story started in Tucson. We were staying at a state park outside the city of Tucson, Arizona. And Ty and I ride our mountain bikes every chance we get. And this was a great place to ride, but it was a little disconcerting to see signs like this everywhere we went. And it says, check your surroundings for venomous critters. But, you know, I wasn't too worried, because at that point, we had done the Messages of Hope tour 5 years in a row. And the number of snake encounters, the number of times we had actually seen a snake with all the riding we do in the desert and everywhere, or all the hiking, was 0. No snakes in 5 years. So I'm not real worried. Now at that campground, we were going to be there for a full 8 days. And so we were using the campground bathhouse instead of filling up our tanks in the bus. So I said to Ty, I'm going to go get a shower. And I leave the bus and I go traipsing down the trail in the middle of the day towards the bathhouse. I get about 50 feet from the bus and I hear a sound that is unmistakable. I should have brought my maracas over here because it sounds exactly like what I heard that day. This rattle that made me stop in my tracks. And there, right beyond arm's length, in the middle of the trail in front of me, coiled and standing up, not like this picture. This is him. This is actually the snake. Maybe it's her, I don't know. Was coiled up and staring at me saying, don't take another step. But let me tell you, that snake didn't need to say a word because I screamed and froze. Nobody heard my scream because everybody was shut inside their RVs with the air conditioner on. So I stepped back 10 feet, shrieked again. Nobody came to my rescue. And I ran at full speed back into the bus. And I get inside the bus and Ty says, what's the matter? And I can barely speak. And I'm going, it's a snake. It's a rattlesnake, a really big rattlesnake. And my loving husband, who cares for me dearly, responded by saying, "Oh, cool, let me get my camera." So instead of rushing to help me in my distress, he grabbed his camera and went running out the door and got this really great photo of that snake. Meanwhile, I'm calling the campground hosts and the ranger. The campground host showed up with this little tiny bucket, and they said, "Ooh, he's a really big one." They're expecting this little tiny snake. So they had to call the ranger, who was used to gathering these guys. And this is a screenshot from the video of when the ranger picked him up. Wow. So this was a little bit frightening to me to come that close to a snake. And I got this great video of him. So I put it on Facebook. Look what happened, everybody. Oh my goodness. And I was totally caught up in the drama. And I was really enjoying everybody's dramatic responses back on Facebook, until one person posted this: "Suzanne, snake is good medicine." Hang on, I gotta put the glasses on for this one. "It teaches us about transformation and shedding those old skins. I'm glad you're okay after being rattled. Sorry, I couldn't help that," she wrote. And this was the first time I realized, well, wait a minute. My mind immediately went to a snake in my path is a bad thing. I gave it meaning. But on the spiritual path, I've come to realize that things that cross our path happen for a reason. Take a note of that. So I went online and I did a Google search for the snake as a totem. And that means a spirit animal. And this is a lot of words, but it's very important to the whole talk. Here's what I found out when a snake crosses your path. On the deepest level, snake skin shedding symbolizes death and rebirth. Not death of your body, but rebirth on a spiritual path. The snake's medicine is not to be treated lightly. If you are ready to shed your own skin, snake is ready and waiting to guide you through the spiral path of transformation. Snake signifies manipulation of lightning. Now that got my attention, especially since Susan was struck and killed by lightning. Snake also signifies transmutation, exploration of the mysteries of life, primitive or elemental energy, goddess energy, psychic energy, creative power. Are some of you now kind of almost wishing a snake would cross your path? Because this is really powerful stuff. Snake medicine is the energy of wholeness, cosmic consciousness, and the ability to experience anything willingly and without resistance. How many of us do that? I can tell you at that point in 2016, I wasn't there yet. It's the knowledge that all things are equal in creation, that all is one. All this meaning from having a snake cross your path. And finally, if snake enters your life, expect swift changes to sweep through your life. These changes denote death of the old and a birth into untapped power, creativity, and wisdom. Snake is very powerful to have as a guide. Well, now I go from terror to excitement, thinking, okay, maybe something's going to happen, or maybe it's just a coincidence, right? How many times do we do that and just dismiss things that happen in our life? Okay, sometimes it could be a coincidence. I think when I'm finished, you'll know it wasn't. So my smart aleck husband comes back later that afternoon from the visitor center at the campground where we're staying. And he says, Suzanne, they have a ceramic snake up there. May I get it for you? Well, at least he asked. And you know, I actually wanted it because I wanted to believe and trust and manifest that all these beautiful things that a snake as a totem portends would come into my life. So I know if you all signed up for this workshop, you saw that picture, but here he is. Here's that snake, right? And I'm holding him now and I have no trouble holding him. But what was really interesting was when Ty brought this very lifelike snake into the bus, I was a little freaked out because I'm still on edge from having just had that encounter with the rattlesnake. I didn't even want to go near it. But what I found very interesting was our 2 dachshunds did not react at all to this because it wasn't moving. It didn't have a scent. So they didn't give it any meaning. This is just a thing. And I realized then that we give everything its meaning. And most of it is built on what others have told us. So I said, I need to come to terms with this fellow. And I said, Ty, I'm going in to meditate. So I took the snake and I went into the bedroom of the RV, of the bus. And literally, I laid down on the bed and I laid him on my chest, just like you see here. And I looked him right in the face. And I was terrified. And I said, you are an expression of spirit, just as I am. And I'm not going to give it any more meaning than that. And I'll steer clear of you if you steer clear of me. And we had a nice little talk, and it was very empowering. And I shared this with some friends of ours. In fact, Bev knows the woman who I shared this with, Donna Kelly, wrote back and she said, Suzanne, I was just reading Dr. Seuss, and he says you have to kiss your monsters on the nose. And that's literally what you just did. And so I hope that some of you right now are saying, I can't believe she did that. I couldn't imagine doing that, you know, going right up front, up face to face with something that lifelike. But see, this is the thing. If you're not squirming a little, you're not growing. So we don't deliberately put ourselves in danger's way. And I certainly wouldn't do that with a live snake. But when we can stop and look at our fears objectively, neutrally, look at the meaning we give to them, there's a lot of learning to be had. So what I noticed in the next few days was every time I stepped out of the bus, I felt fear. And I stopped and I looked around and I was on alert. Whereas for 5 years prior to that, I would just blithely step out. And I didn't like that feeling. So now I know there's a need to be a little cautious because there are rattlesnakes around, but not this fear. I did not like the fear. And I knew it was so opposite of the peace that I've discovered in meditation. I hope many of you know that peace. And what I learned is that what was going on was that the oldest part of my brain had been hijacked by that fear. This is a very real thing that can happen to any of us. And some of you will suddenly have an aha moment. The oldest part of the brain is called the amygdala. It's also called, are you ready for this? The reptilian brain, because it simply reacts on automatic. It's what keeps us safe by triggering the fight or flight syndrome. And so it did its job, but it continued to do its job afterwards. And so if you have suffered any kind of trauma, including the death of a loved one, any event, a car accident, anything that's shocking that sent you into a sudden panic, and you're continuing to feel that panic, your amygdala has been hijacked. So I reached out to a good friend, Lorene O'Brien. I knew she was a trauma expert. She had helped me in the past with a few things. And I said, Lorene, I can't stand this hyper alert. And she said, well, that's because you're on hypervigilance. And she gave me a tool. And this is the tool that I promised I would share with you, because it absolutely is possible to retrain your mind, to talk to that amygdala, and using the newer part of your brain, the frontal lobes, together with this technique, take away the hypervigilance, even if you've been doing this for a long time. So here's how it works. You bring the event that's causing you repeated hypervigilance into your mind, and you breathe in deeply. And then you breathe in more. You feel you've gotten to the end of your breath, and then you breathe in just a little more. And when you're at the top of that breath, having taken in as much as you can, you tell the reptilian portion of your brain that's protecting you, it's okay now, you're safe. you can stop protecting me from that incident that is over. Talking to the incident, looking at it analytically from above and outside, is using the frontal lobe. The reptilian brain can't reason, can't use logic. So you're putting the two together here. I did that 2 or 3 times in 1 minute, and all of the panic was gone. I was right back to the way I was before the snake incident, able to step out of the bus, now looking around, but without panic, without fear. So I'd like you to join me for a minute here, and we're just going to practice it. I'd like you to give it your full attention later when you actually bring to mind a fear. But let's just, everybody now, take in a deep breath. And now breathe in a little more without exhaling. Now you're at the top of that breath. Move your awareness to the base of the brainstem and tell yourself, thank you for protecting me. You're safe now. You can stop being hyper vigilant. All is well. And just relax slowly and release that. And that's it. Quick and simple trauma tool. I hope that that proves useful for you. And I myself had a chance to use that again after an incident where my mother was choking and I thought she was going to die. And then after that, I didn't want to leave her side for quite a while. And I recognized that's that same amygdala hijack. And just like before, that technique took that away. So I hope you enjoyed that. So again, what happens is we get so caught up in the story looking outward, we don't remember who we are. And this is what the spiritual path is all about. If people say, I'm on the spiritual path, I'm gathering with 1,000 of my most close kindred spirits today, what exactly is the spiritual path? And really, it's quite simple. It's the journey from shifting your principal identity from that of a human in a body to a soul having a human experience. It's when you make that shift and you really, really know in your heart, I'm acting out a role here, but what is looking through these eyes is a being of light, is source. You may not be able to hold that viewpoint at the beginning of the journey when you've made the shift, but just knowing that you can do it consciously, shift your viewpoint from the one experiencing the duality, as this diagram exemplifies with the yin yang symbol, and rising above using your consciousness and your intention to become that light that is the witness of the role you're playing. That's when you can find the neutral viewpoint. That's when you can get guidance. So that very week after the rattlesnake encounter, I went into meditation and said, boy, I've really been getting caught up in the drama. I really got caught up on the Facebook post about the rattlesnake. It was all about the drama and it was great fun. And I got really off balance. And many of you who have attended some of my workshops know that I've had the wonderful experience of connecting with quite a few of the masters at the higher level, and you can do it too, because they are also expressions of the same source. And this particular week, I knew that what I wanted to do was get rid of the ego that was enjoying the drama so much. And so I went into meditation and found myself praying, crucify this ego. And even as the words came out of my mouth, I thought that was unusual, because clearly it refers to the crucifixion of Jesus, and that's not part of my religious background, but those were the words that came out of my mouth in the prayer, crucify this ego. And here's the miracle that unfolded after that. Ty and I got in the car to go out to dinner in Tucson later this same day when I made that prayer to the masters. We're driving down the road in Tucson, and we come to a traffic light that it turns red. There's one car in front of us. The light's about to change and a woman gets out of the car and she walks back towards us. I looked at Ty and he looked at me like, what is this woman doing? We're going to have to get going here in a second. She walked right up to the side of Ty's window. He's in the driver's seat. She just looked at him and smiled and pointed at the ground. She made a sign of prayer, walked back into her car, and drove away. We looked at each other and said, what was that all about? And he said, there's something on the ground. And he quickly opened the car door, got out, and got back in the car and opened his hand. And both of us were absolutely speechless. This is a picture of what was actually on the ground, taken on the counter in our bus, the day I prayed for Spirit to crucify this ego. 3 long antique looking nails. And of course, Jesus was crucified with nails. And look how that unfolded. The woman stops. How did she see them from her car? Why did she not say a word? Why did she have just a knowing smile on her face, a beautiful smile, and put her hands together? I had completely forgotten this incident, but I don't know how I could have, because it's truly stunning. So this is all happening right after the snake shows up, showing that big transmutation of energy is coming. We were moving on from Tucson to Phoenix, only a short drive away. And we stopped in Mesa, just near Phoenix, stayed at another campground for the weekend because I had some events coming up. And we went for a mountain bike ride in the desert. Really, really fun. And guess what? This is my photo of snake number 2 within the same week of the rattlesnake. Remember, 0 snakes in 5 years, and we now have 2 snakes in 1 week. Okay, well, I got a picture of it. Let's hope there aren't any more. We drive on now after Mesa, short trip there to Phoenix, and stay at a campground in Cave Creek, where I got to meet for the first time the founder of Helping Parents Heal, one of my favorite organizations to help parents who have a child across the veil. And you see her here with her husband. It's Elizabeth Boisson in the middle in the black t-shirt, and her husband Cyril is in the white t-shirt. They have their arms around each other. We were invited to a ceremony in which they were going to dedicate a bench in honor of their son, Morgan, who passed. The bench was also in honor of another young man named Kyle, Nita and Glenn Erickson's son. I was so pleased that they invited us with all these other friends to celebrate these 2 young men's lives. And I was so impressed that Elizabeth had gone out and bought dove-shaped balloons for all of us to release in honor of the boys. And she was so conscious of the environment that they were biodegradable balloons and biodegradable strings, which was a beautiful gesture. And it was a beautiful sight when all of us released these balloons, which you see here in this photo. All these doves going off into the heavens. And of course, the dove is the symbol of eternal life and the Holy Spirit, right? The voice of God. So after that event, the next day, we returned to Mesa just in our car so I could speak at Unity Church of Mesa. This is about 24 hours after the balloon release. And this is a map of where the balloons were released, and down at the bottom where we were for the church talk. And you can see on this map, if you look closely, 38 miles away, almost an hour's drive away, 24 hours since we released the balloons. And if you read my book, Still Right Here, you'll know the next miracle that happened that week. We're driving up the highway, just having left Mesa. So we are that 38 miles away from where we released them 24 hours earlier. And one of those dove balloons flew right up the hood of our car, across our windshield, and over the car. We let out an, oh my God. And that's when we did the calculations. And really, it's physically impossible for one of those balloons to have traveled that route to go over our car at that exact minute. And yet it happened. And that, again, is my definition of a miracle. When the veil parts enough to show you that we're connected to something so much more than this physical world, and that maybe the physical world really is a projection of consciousness. And that when it gets a message across that we need to hear about our connection, miracles like that happen. A nice message from Morgan and Kyle and spirit. We're all expressions of spirit. And again, the dove balloon being the perfect symbol, isn't it? Of the eternal spirit within us. I remember my brother was not really on board with this whole mediumship thing when I got into it. He did 33 years in the Air Force, and now his sister, the retired commander, is now a medium. And after my father passed, we started seeing cardinals everywhere. And I said, that's Dad's sign. Another medium even told me that. And he's like, yeah, that's fine, but I don't believe it. So I was sitting at a friend's yard, and a cardinal came down just when we were talking about Dad. And I texted my brother and sister a photo of the cardinal. I said, Dad's here, we're talking about him. And my brother said, yeah, and I won't believe that unless a dove comes and lands with it, because dove was grandmother's sign. And 30 seconds later, I was able to send him the photo of the dove and the cardinal on the same branch. So as this slide says, I hope that y'all will learn to ask your loved ones for specific signs. When you feel their presence, they don't mind being put to the test. Send me this or send me that. They'll put the idea in your head of what to ask for. They're just waiting for you to ask. That same week, while we were visiting Elizabeth and Cyril, shown here in the picture, we met new friends, Lynn and Jeff Holohan, who are featured in my book, Still Right Here. And we got together at Lynn and Jeff's home in Scottsdale, Arizona. And all of our kids dropped in on us during that dinner from the spirit world. Morgan, who we just dedicated the bench to, showed me that his mom had just seen a hot air balloon that morning, and she validated, yes, I took a picture of it. Lynn and Jeff's son, Devin, said that his mom had meant to serve corn on the cob that morning, but changed her mind. And she showed me a photo of the corn she was going to buy, but decided against it. And suddenly here's my Susan right beside me saying, what about me? I'm here too. And as a medium, I was able to be their voice at that table. And I said silently, Susan, if you're here, I need some evidence, something about your dad that I don't know. And she said, Dad has a toothache. And I turned to Ty and I said, you have a toothache? He didn't even know why I was asking. And he said, well, it just started bothering me this morning, but I didn't say anything about it. And that's when we all knew that our kids really are there. And of course they are. All you have to do is think about your loved ones and they're there. And it's Susan across the veil who told me this. We in the spirit world, send our forms out to the places we think about. When those of us in spirit want to be present with you in a reading or in a visit, we simply project our form through intention. So a lot of you want to know, how does that work? It's all consciousness. It's a projection, just like I showed that projector of consciousness projecting your story. And we are all created mirror images of that sea of potential. And those in the spirit world know it, and they harness intention to project their form to visit you. Isn't that cool to know how it works? So on we went on the tour to Cottonwood, Arizona. There we are hiking again. And guess what? I had to circle it because it's a little camouflage. Great big snake number 3. But these are happily, I think they're called bull snakes, not rattlesnakes. I didn't get close enough to find out for sure. But that's 3 in about 2 weeks. Cottonwood is just south of Sedona, Arizona. Beautiful place. I hope you all get to visit if you haven't already. I had recently done one of my interviews with Buddha at the gas pump. And Rick Archer, who did the interview, told me that another woman who was interviewed lives in Sedona and that we might enjoy talking to each other. So we got together for coffee, And the woman started talking about dark energies and dark beings. And that's why I wrote the word fear there. I immediately put up a little barrier. No, no, no. Maybe she needs to worry about dark energies, but I don't even go there. I know that we're the light. I just turn up the light. And it absolutely had been working for me. So just remember that came up. We continued on to Prescott, Arizona. There's the handlebar of the bike again. Snake number 4 on the trail. This is getting a little attention getting, isn't it? So from Arizona, I had to fly back east to visit my mother halfway through the trip. I did that every year for our mutual birthday. I'm at home alone and I step outside to go somewhere from our house in Florida. And there's your lovely garden snake that can be found in Florida, snake number 5 in the same month. This visit home was especially interesting because after this snake, I stepped out on the porch the next day and found an entire snake skin. So the snake as totem paragraphs that I read you talked about shedding your skin. This is really in my face now. It's like spirit saying, listen, soul, you really need to clear out some stuff in that instrument. But I wasn't aware of what it was that needed to be cleared out. So I returned out west and I put on here confidential because some incidents happened that I don't want to give away the location because these are some personal details that came up. But I was giving a talk at a Unity church, had no intention of doing any readings, but was called to a couple in the audience. Spirit told me, you are supposed to do a reading for them. And even though I had a reading waiting list, I went up to them and said, I'm being told I'm supposed to give you a reading. And they came to our RV and I gave them a reading the next day. And I found out immediately why I was supposed to do that reading, because this couple had a son in spirit and he showed up very clearly. He showed me my symbol for suicide and his parents confirmed that he had taken his own life. He showed me that he had military service by saluting me and he had been a sergeant in the Army. And he showed me he had been thrown out of the Army and he said the words psychotic break. And his parents said, yes, he had a psychotic break. I was stunned by the way that reading came about, very, very grateful for the clarity of the evidence that came through and the messages that he was able to give his parents after that. Right after that reading, I tried to send them a recording of the reading, but I was not getting an internet signal in the campground. For an hour and a half, I drove around trying to get an internet signal, getting more and more irritable by the minute. I mean, I say it's like PMS on steroids. And the problem is I stayed that way for a week. I remember, and Bev will probably remember this too, that reading happened on a Monday. On Friday, I called her and she says, Suzanne, what's the matter with you? You don't even sound like yourself. And I said, I don't know. I've just been irritable all week. And in fact, I was supposed to do a radio show Friday afternoon, a spiritual talk. And I was feeling anything but spiritual after doing that reading. I never made the connection with the young man in spirit who I'd brought through, who we're going to call him Philip for the sake of this presentation here. Instead, I'm finding myself angry for no reason at all. I'm getting very irritated with my computer. Anybody here notice when those things happen to you? This is when it's really, really important to pay attention to all of our thoughts, to be mindful. I was mindful that I was out of sorts, but I didn't know why. So Friday comes around and we've now moved to the second location. I go to do this radio show feeling anything but spiritual. And I said, Spirit, you've got to help me. I need help doing this interview. And suddenly in swoops an energy which I have felt in the past and identified as Archangel Michael. And I was stunned by this immediate answer to my prayer. And suddenly I saw a young man in an army uniform exiting with Archangel Michael. And suddenly I felt like myself again. This was a huge eye opener to me, that young man who'd had a psychotic break, who was in the military, just kind of liked the way I felt, recognized a kindred spirit who used to be in the military and had decided to hang around for a while. I don't feel at all that he meant me any harm, but he sure had a lesson to teach me, to be aware and that these kinds of things can happen. So the next day, I was leading a workshop in a new location. This lady reached out to me probably just a couple hours before, and she said, I'm kind of on the fence whether to attend your workshop. And I said, well, we have room, come if your heart tells you to come. And she decided to come. And when we got to the part where I talked about our innate protection, I told them all about my recent experience, and that even though I turned up the light, there was a lesson that I needed to learn. And it turns out that was what this woman needed to hear, because she had repeatedly had experiences like that, where she had incidents where less than positive thought forms were hanging around her. And she said that if I had taught that that kind of thing never happens, she would not have believed that the course was worth her time. So look at the timing of that. Look at the web. And as I'm teaching that class, I always do a demonstration of mediumship in these classes. I knew exactly who I was supposed to do a reading for in that class. It's just a pulling of the soul. Spirit says, those two people right there, another couple. So they agreed to be read. They came to the front of the class, and I was stunned. 6 days after the last one, this couple had a son in spirit named Philip, same name. This Philip took his own life, just like the other one. This Philip had a psychotic break, just like the other one. What are the chances of that? Well, it's very high when you follow the nudges and Spirit says, do this, do that, and you learn to trust. All it's doing for me at this time is saying, pay attention, big changes are happening. So we moved on to Glenwood Canyon, I believe that's in Colorado, and needing a break after doing an event, Ty and I go for a bike ride. Beautiful Glenwood Canyon, one of the best bike rides in the country. And I didn't catch this guy because he slithered away way too fast. But right on this trail is snake number 7. 7 snakes. All right, I'm really paying attention now. And I have to fly back east again, this time to Raleigh, North Carolina, because I was going to give a keynote speech at a conference, the Academy for Spiritual and Consciousness Studies. And it was really interesting timing because my keynote speech was on June the 8th. And this was 2016. And that was our Susan's 10-year angelversary. The exact date of my talk was the 10th year to the date that Susan was struck and killed by lightning. And I was going to lead a meditation in that keynote speech. And I had music that I provided to the conference organizer. And for some reason, and anytime I put it in quotes, that's because Spirit's at work here. For some reason, his speakers wouldn't work. He couldn't get his music working. We're getting down to the last minute before I'm supposed to go on. And I said, well, why don't I just go get my computer, my laptop, and we'll play the song that's on there right out of my computer. He said, okay. So I ran up to my hotel room, come back down. I haven't taken it out of the case yet. The computer is in a protective carry case, totally closed and off. And suddenly I heard music. And what's happening? My computer turned off, and inside a sealed case is playing a song shown here on this slide. It's by Josh Groban called So She Dances. And that is the one song I associate with Susan. I hadn't played it in ages on my laptop. And this was Susan reaching out on her 10-year angel date to say, you're up there talking with me and for me. A big thank you. So be watching for these magical moments. They happen all the time. So remember that lady in Sedona who was talking about dark energies? And I'm like, no, I stay away from that. I don't even pay attention to that. You think there might have been a little fear in that on my part? Well, I'm looking at the schedule for this conference, and the same day as my keynote speech is a talk by a gentleman who is a licensed registered hypnotherapist. And it's all about earthbound spirits, ghosts, and extraterrestrials, and how they can affect you and your client, and 6 steps to release them. Well, in the past, I would never have gone to a talk like that. I'm not going to be listening to somebody talk about spirit attachments. That's going to be giving it power. I don't want to talk about ghosts. We're going to call them spirits, not ghosts. But something caught my eye. In addition to all these things that had been happening to me, in addition to the incidents with the 2 Phillips and the one that hung around for a week, making me very irritable, the name of the speaker, the hypnotherapist, was Philip. Now see, this is where you start connecting the dots. And the dots were, okay, I've been on this tour for 5 years, no snakes. I've seen 7 snakes in less than 2 months. I've had a spirit hang around with me and make me act not like myself. If this is a projection of the sea of all possibilities, then perhaps anything can be projected if there's something we have to learn from it. So I went to Philip's talk, and I'm sitting there in the audience, and he's talking about how when you start hearing things that your ego doesn't want you to hear, you may feel yourself wanting to escape. And as I'm listening to him talk, all I want to do is sneak out the back and go find a chocolate chip cookie. I don't know about any of you, but all of a sudden, if my mood plummets or I'm feeling unloved in the past, any of those things, give me sugar, give me sugar. And I'm sitting in this auditorium, and repeatedly, it was one of the worst cravings I've ever had for a cookie. And I realized something is going on here, because by now I am paying attention. So I left the talk. When it was over, I skipped the cookie and went straight to Philip. I found him and I said, hey, I'm a fellow presenter. I know how busy we all are at these conferences, but is there any way you could make time for me while we're here? I would love to have a personal session. There's something going on. There's some stuff I need cleared out. And I was stunned, but I shouldn't be, that he was able to make time for me the next day at a time when we both had time off. So we got on his schedule, and he said, be aware, people who make appointments often feel the sudden need to cancel, because again, that ego's like, if she clears out the fear and all the gunk, then what's the need for the ego? She might find out who she is, really the light. And here I am at 3 a.m. in my hotel bed, and I suddenly have to cancel. I sit up, I want to email Philip, oh, sorry, something came up, I can't come to your talk. And I'm aware, and I'm thinking, this is really interesting. So I hope that all of you are relating my story to the behaviors you may have experienced in your life. When do you feel an urge to run away? When do you feel an urge to do things that are not in your best interest, and you know that's not me? Could there be something in you that's somehow blocking the full flow of the light through you? So I go in, I have the session with Philip after all, and he regressed me and put me into a hypnotic state, which is really just a deep state of meditation that we can get into ourselves. But with a trained hypnotherapist, they can ask you questions and get at the deep issue. And I have a transcript of that session. But the most interesting thing that happened was I saw worms inside of me, up and down my spine. Now, I don't want you all to start squirming too much. I knew immediately that these visuals of the worms inside of me was a metaphor from spirit. Because remember, the snake is a symbol as well of transformation. And these worms are just like a whole bunch of little slithery creatures that needed to be cleared out. They could have used any other metaphor. It was a symbol. I didn't have worms inside me, but clearly there was something to be cleared out. And Philip worked on that. And at the end of the session, I reported in this trance state, new beginnings are coming. New beginnings are coming. And this is exactly what the snake's message was all about. But you notice how spirit puts people in your path just when you need it. Hopefully something you're hearing today is exactly what you need to hear, and you will be led to just the right person who can help you. That's why we have beautiful relationships and beautiful healers who can help us. There are some things we can absolutely clear out ourselves. Deeper things, bigger worms may need a trained practitioner. But the new beginnings was absolutely accurate, because immediately I was given several emotional tests in the next few weeks, and your relationships are one of the greatest ways to do that. The people you live with will push your buttons, and I found myself being completely non-reactive. The old way that Suzanne would have acted was completely cleared out, and it was very exciting. And all of life is like a test in progress. So when we realize we're souls and that these tests happen for our soul's growth, we look for the things that trigger us. And then we become willing to look at what's underneath them. So as I started looking, in the middle of the night, I was awakened by the guides saying, now listen, every one of those worms in your regression session represented some traumatic event in the past. It didn't have to be a big trauma like Susan's death, just little major things like when this happened or that happened. And I know all of you can just think back to moments in your life when you created a story around all these events. And that's what happens. We tell stories, and eventually, because they're those battle scars in our aura, they're going to attract exactly what we need in our life. They're mirroring what you need. So I was afraid to talk about dark energies. And I recently, in one of my monthly mentoring webinars, shared about this gentleman who wrote a book about extraterrestrials. And he started seeing them in the middle of the night, and they scared him until he realized they're just thought forms like we are. They're all projections of the light. If they're coming to me, there must be a reason. And once he started looking at it, they no longer bothered him. They're mirroring exactly what we need for our growth. And so in the middle of the night, when Spirit said, now hear this, like a good Navy person, you just need to identify those worms. They actually gave me this really fun technique that, I'm not kidding, is very useful, because if we take our stories too seriously, then we're caught in the drama. But our souls love humor. And my guide said, find each one of those trigger events, identify it as a little worm inside you that needs to come out, and give them different names. Every one of them is a story. And they're just as much a story as you are. So the ambulance there, that's the incident where my mother was choking. And I cleared that out, but we figured that's a worm that might still be bothering me. What little incidents are creating scars in your aura that aren't letting the light through? When you can get that higher perspective, that neutral witness view, and see that all of these are stories, the worms are a metaphor for the parts of the story that need to be cleared out, then you know they're not the true heart of who you really are. And at that event at Unity Village where I shared this workshop, we did an exercise where every one of us identified one worm inside of us that needed to be cleared out. You remember this, Bev and Lynette? And we all got gummy worms. Everybody was given a gummy worm, and we put a fire in the middle of this big circle that we formed, and each one of us released that wound into the light, and it was transmuted by the fire. Rituals are wonderful ways. They are metaphors in themselves for effecting change. It's the intention that comes with the ritual. And you can see in this beautiful next picture how meaningful it was. I love this picture. This woman has just thrown a major worm in the fire. And what is she saying to you? To me, she says, I am free. I am free. And it didn't take an external healer to do that for her. You can do your own ritual, but we have to be willing to look inside and identify these things and be willing to set the story aside. How many people love to tell their dramatic stories over and over and over again and remain in it because it brings attention in? And that's fine as long as you remember that's not the wholeness of who you are. So do you remember how Brenda said this quote, that most of us are walking wounded? And I've been talking about the scars. But part 2 of what Brenda said is the really important part. The scars get this extra glow around them, the ones we heal by working on. They look like little glowworms. I so love that analogy. So what may be this horrible imagery of these worms inside us that are just thought forms, if we're willing to look at them, a gummy worm is just candy. It's like this snake. What meaning do we give to it? They're all projections mirroring what we need to hear and heal. And when we're willing to do that, you've just opened up a new spot for the light to flow through you like a hole in the flute. You took out the gunk, and now that light can flow freely, creating new notes for you to play. So are you ready to shed some skin and allow more light to flow through you? Look at this snake skin in the background. Huh? What patterns in your life are being mirrored back at you? Some people get married and divorce, and then marry again, and marry the same guy in a different body, and then get divorced again, then marry again. That's a pattern. And they're going to keep marrying the same guy until they figure out that it's something in them that's not whole, that they feel somebody outside of them can complete. That's just one example. But patterns in your life, in your own behavior that keeps showing up, that's a little battle scar that needs to be transmuted into a glowworm. So if you're willing to kiss your monsters on the nose, then you turn up your own light. And so many people give their power away to other people and to other things and to a God who is separate from them in their mind. But this web that we're seeing here today shows that we're not separate from it. And all these other beautiful expressions of the light come into our life when we most need them to teach us things and to help us heal. But we have to turn up our own light. We have to be willing to pay attention. You turn it up yourself by looking the monsters in the nose. Some of them may be too painful to do alone. By all means, find help with that. But the little gummy worms, why don't we handle one right now? Many of you are probably already familiar with my Bless Me method of connecting with higher consciousness. So I'm not going to go into the whole thing here. If you don't know about it, afterwards you can go to the gifts page on my website shown here, and there's a whole video that gives it to you in great detail. But for now, I'm going to lead you through a meditation in a few minutes here to identify and clear out a little gummy worm, okay? And the way I'll lead it through you is by following this very simple process that helps you get into a nice expanded state of consciousness. What is the point of that? To stop focusing on the external projection and go within, where all the answers are held, to connect with the part of you that is always connected to your true nature, pure awareness, the sea where all the answers are available. We don't have access to all the answers as long as we're wearing this skin suit. That's just part of the blindfold that we willingly take on as souls. But by using a process like this or many other meditative techniques, you can at least peel it back enough through your intention to see with new eyes, the soul's eye, what you might not see if you remain in your limited human viewpoint. So the process is simple. You begin with a few slow, deep breaths to slow down your brain and relax the body. You want to get into an alert yet relaxed state. And then lift means lift your mood. And the fastest way to do that is by focusing on gratitude or someone or something that you love. Again, this is a very abbreviated version, but you stay in that L phase long enough until you actually feel better than you did a moment before, thanks to your own efforts. Expand is when you take in a deep breath and with intention of expanding your field, you exhale, but envision your aura, your energy field going out in all directions and filling all of space. You do it with the breath like this. And now you know you are limitless beyond the body. Surrender is simply the intention to set the ego aside and sit as a soul in soul awareness. That's all it takes is the intention. And shift is simply shifting now to knowing I am a soul. I am sitting now as a soul. I've set my story aside. Merge is when you invite in any helpful beings to help you and answer your questions or help you deal with whatever you're dealing with. Or perhaps you ask in a loved one who has passed to help you. An experience is when you ask a question or simply sit quietly and see what arises. We're going to use this process now to reprogram a pattern in your life that pops up over and over again. Some behavior in you that you're pretty sick and tired of and could do without because you know it's not in harmony with your true nature. Perhaps you react to things people say a certain way. Whatever it is, I know you know what it is. To be reprogrammed is not brainwashed. It's saying, may I act differently in the future when these triggers come up? May I act more lovingly? May I act in alignment with my true self? So I hope you have in mind a pattern you'd like to reprogram. And with that in mind, I'm going to lead you now in a brief Bless Me meditation, which always begins with a clear intention. And our intention is to clear out an identified pattern. All right? So let's all just close our eyes as I call on Spirit to guide these words. And let's all take a nice deep breath, imagining The breath coming in on a shaft of light which goes from above and anchors you into the center of the earth. Pull in the air from both ends of that light into your heart and exhale very slowly, longer than you inhaled. Let's take another nice deep breath from above and below. And this time as you exhale, release anything that doesn't serve you into a cloud in front of you on the exhale, nice and slow. Any nervousness you're feeling, any restlessness, just let that go. And we send that cloud up into the light to be released. Take in another nice deep breath from above and below. Exhale nice and slowly. And feel yourself relaxing more and more, releasing any remaining tension in your body. By now you can feel a difference in how relaxed you are. Now bring to mind someone or something you love with all your heart and feel that surge in the heart area, that love, that connection. Silently express your gratitude for the blessings in your life. No matter what is going on, there is always something to be grateful for. And in awareness that you are so much more than this body, take in a breath and exhale with me to expand your energy field outward. And out goes your field across all eternity until you are limitless, the light. In the mind, simply affirm, I surrender the story and set it aside. With no story, with no name attached to that story, just pure being here, now, this, as awareness. Shift your full being to awareness of being whole, being complete. You know this state for brief moments upon awakening, just before you fall asleep, in those moments of grace. This is your true nature with no story. And now we ask any being of the light, any higher being, knowing that only the highest and most helpful being for our greatest good is allowed into our awareness, to step into our awareness, to help us. Like a beautiful angel wrapping its wings around us. We ask it to merge its energy with us and inspire us. Take a moment to look at this pattern and ask this being, show me please what this pattern has to reveal to me. What is it in myself I need to know related to this pattern? And take this time to experience any insights that bubble up from higher awareness. And this is a brief experience. And we give gratitude for it, knowing that we can come back to this section of this session and pause here for longer periods of time with our guidance. But because you've asked whether or not you heard an answer, know that your question has been heard and that insights will flow now beyond this session and affirm together, I am willing to look at what is given to me, to look at the signs, to receive the teaching with gratitude, and to release what no longer serves me. May my lessons be as painless as possible as I rejoice in this opportunity for more light to flow naturally through this beautiful vessel. And with gratitude for what has happened and what is yet to happen, wiggle your fingers and toes. Taking a nice deep breath, a refreshing breath, and come back to full awareness. That was brief, but I got the big lip twitch from my guides that you got what you needed. And again, not all answers come immediately, but that's how you ask. That's one way we can ask, and it's your intention and your soul's willingness to do a practice like that that creates miracles. And you can do that over and over as you identify little battle scars in the aura that could turn easily into glowworms. All right? So just remember, love is the name of that field from which we arise. It's the feeling we get when we connect with others. Our whole purpose in coming here is to be the expression of love. When we are in a state of love, there is no resistance. There's total acceptance. But again, in our human roles, we tend to forget that innate connection. We tend to forget that we are here created to be mirror images of love. With this in awareness, I'm going to catapult you now for the final portion of this workshop from 2016 to 2021. And this is the part that came about in the last 4 or 5 days to show you how the web is ongoing. The miracles continue to flow, that it's all connected and we are all connected. And that we truly are created to mirror love to each other. Now, as far as creatures that were created to show us and mirror what love is, who could deny that our beloved pets do that for us? These are our 2 puppies who we have now. Rudy and Gretchen, our previous ones, are across the Rainbow Bridge, but you see Nellie on the left and our new Rusty on the right, little mirrors of love in our new family. And those of you who follow my Facebook page may have seen the video I posted there about a week ago. I was up here in my home gym and I brought Rusty up here for the first time. He's only 12 weeks old. And this is a screenshot of Rusty catching himself in a mirror for the first time. This talk has talked a lot about mirroring oneself. And I sent this video out because for several minutes, he barked and growled and attacked his reflection in the mirror. Meanwhile, his sister Nellie is saying, "What's up with you? Don't you get it? That's just a reflection." And it was so cute and so funny. And then just about 3 days ago, Ty and I were having breakfast at the table, and I looked over and there was Rusty sniffing around at the sliding glass doors in our living room. And I've tried to recreate this moment here. It doesn't capture it exactly. Look at that heart on his right side. I hope you can see it. Sometimes it's even more clear depending on how he moves. But I noticed Rusty's reflection in the glass. And if you look very carefully, you can see his reflection in the glass. And I reflected at that moment that if I weren't looking at Rusty's body, if I were only seeing the reflection, I was seeing him tail on the left, head on the right, yet I was seeing what I know is his left side. Yet if I thought that reflection were the real him, I was not seeing him accurately. I was seeing him backwards. I hope that makes sense to you. I know he has a heart on his right flank, but the reflection looked like I was looking at his right side and I was not seeing that heart. So I got to thinking about how I've been told that our eyes actually reverse what appears to be outside of us. And I got to questioning what is really real. So the next day, I asked the question in meditation, when we're in our human bodies, how can we know what is ultimate reality if our physical eyes can deceive us? I asked the question. I'm in meditation 2 days ago. I had asked the question, put it out of my mind, and suddenly my head got pulled to the left. Very unexpectedly, I feel the presence of another master. And I identified that as Jesus or Christ consciousness. But it's important to understand, again, to me, there's no religious aspect to this. What is a Christ? It's a name for the transcendent aspect of all that is. So spiritual teachings say that Christ is a name for spirit in all of us. So the Christ is in you and in me and in our pets and in all that is. And when we come to know that, that is the experience of Christ consciousness. To me, no matter who speaks, that is the voice of spirit talking to me. Once you really understand who we are, I don't call that God speaking to me. I could call it the Holy Spirit. Many of you who followed my classes know I call it joy. That's that Christ in you and me, the awareness of the transcendent spirit, that Holy Spirit is joy. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's very wise. And so 2 days ago in meditation, I'm pulled to the left. I feel that presence. And I just became very still and listened. And 2 words bubbled up from the field. And they were uttered like a whisper in a way I've never heard in any of my readings, in any meditations. It was an actual whisper. And the words were, follow me. This knocked me off balance a little because I know that those are words from the Bible. And I don't usually hear those kinds of words from when the one known as Jesus comes through in my meditations. I didn't know what I was being asked to do, but I had my iPad with me because I always have it in meditation ready to write the daily way messages, the Sanaya messages that I get each day. So I opened a new email, wrote to myself an email with the subject line, follow me, so that I wouldn't forget that that had happened. And I asked, what is the message in this? What am I being told? And I was told, open a new message. So I created a new email. It's very possible to hold an expanded state of awareness even with your eyes open. I created a new email to myself, and I was told, make the subject line of this email the last name R-O-H-R. Some of you may be familiar with an author named Richard Rohr. He's a Franciscan priest, and he's written many books that help us to have a more spiritual approach to life, not so much Catholic as spiritual. And he's a brilliant, brilliant writer. And it was very strange to me that I was told to put him at the top of the message. But I knew intuitively I was being told that some of the answers to what were to follow would be found in one of Richard Rohr's books. I have several of them. So I closed my eyes and I began typing then as the words flowed from joy, the voice of source. And I typed about 2 paragraphs, and I usually don't remember what's coming through, even in the Daily Way messages. And when I opened my eyes, I thought, oh no, not again. The words were all garbled. Sometimes I put my fingers on the wrong keys and I miss a big message. Now, We could get it again if Spirit wants us to have it, but there's nothing like that initial moment when it comes through. So I was about to hit delete and start over and say, can you give me that again? When something caught my eye. Thank God I took a screenshot of this miraculous moment, because this is the screenshot of what I had typed. And if you look very closely, maybe you'll notice what I noticed. I'm going to put my glasses on. Just one thing jumped out at me, and it was that a word was backwards. And I looked more closely, and the entire message is a mirror image of what I typed. It really took my breath away, because I don't know how that happened. I don't know how that can happen, but I've seen things like this happen when Spirit's involved. It's completely backwards. It's a mirror image. The words I typed came out that way. So here's what the message says. Let's see. Here we go. Once I went in and read it backwards, I had to do it very slowly. Do not follow by imitating what you have read in a book. Remember, my question was, what does that mean, follow me? Follow by being led in each moment by the Christ. In other words, the Spirit within. Not Jesus, not any one master, by the light within. Follow by being led in each moment by the Spirit within. Do not attempt to adhere to human rules. You are bound as prisoners by money and time and physical limitations. Follow his word in your heart, word with a capital W, meaning that of joy, of spirit. Ask each moment, how do I respond? Okay, I'm used to getting deep messages in the morning, but I was still kind of floored by that reverse image. And so I asked, still in a meditative state, what is the meaning of this mirrored message? What just happened here? And I immediately got an answer from Joy. And I wrote it in a new email with the subject line, Joy. And Joy said, I'll read it to you. You saw the image of the dog reflected and realized it is not as real as it seems. All is not as it seems. It is a reflection, a projection, which is what we have been talking about all afternoon. You, all of you, are here to practice the aspects of the soul, loving kindness, compassion, the gifts of the Spirit. All of these are yours, moment by moment. Be a reflection, like the mirrored email. Be a reflection of these. This is the meaning of the backwards email. Get out of the head and into the heart. And then Joy said something that seemed completely out of context, but I'm writing it down as I get it. Joy said, through a glass dimly. Now, I had seen Rusty's reflection dimly in the glass, but I knew I was supposed to immediately look up the meaning of this phrase. I'd heard it before. So I opened up a browser in my iPad to Google, and I started to type through a glass dimly, but it filled in the blank and filled out through a glass darkly, and up came this old classic Swedish movie. And I know in my soul, that's not it. Go back and make it, force it to write through a glass dimly, which is what Joy said. And here is what came up. It's a quote from the Bible, 1 Corinthians, which I don't know because I'm not a biblical scholar. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known. What this says to me is just like when I was questioning, how much of this reality can we know when we're wearing these physical bodies as blindfolds? This is the answer. All of these metaphors and these lessons and these magical moments and drawing your attention to study reflections, and your dog being a teacher of love to you is teaching you that for now you can't know. None of us can fully know the depths of our being. None of us right now can know the fullness of the light that flows through us and around us and is us. We see as if through a glass. It's a projection. But one day, metaphorically face to face with other light beings, when the skin suit has been taken off, then we will know. That was 2 days ago. I'm connecting all the dots, and I thought that was profound enough. I shared it with Bev and Lynette and Ty, and they recognized the miracle in the making with that backwards email and all of these things coming together. But it wasn't until yesterday when I had a chance to finally look up Richard Rohr's books. And I went to Amazon, and he had a bunch of books, and I was snagged immediately. I knew this is the book we in spirit want you to look at, and it's called The Universal Christ. And I thought, I recognize this one. So I went to my Kindle, and I opened it, and I already owned it. But I had only read 3% of the book. Kindle tells you how far you've gone. So clearly I don't know what's in the book, just that I had barely started it several years ago. I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you, if this talk really talks to you, this book will talk to you. Because I got on my elliptical because I was trying to multitask, getting ready for today. And I heard, do a search for dove and Holy Spirit. You remember the doves earlier in this talk, the dove balloons. Dove was a big deal that summer, 2016. We've been talking about what Holy Spirit means as the presence, the voice of Source in all of us. Take away the religious aspect. We have to give it a name somehow, right? So I open up my Kindle and I search Dove and Holy Spirit. And here's what comes up. The true and essential work of all religion is to help us recognize and recover the divine image in everything. It is to mirror things correctly, deeply, and fully, until all things know who they are. It's the same message. And here comes that mirror analogy. And I saw this coming together, and I reached out. I finished my workout. There's more to come. And I immediately created that email that I sent yesterday. And clearly, those of you who signed up in the last 24 hours were meant to be here, because we doubled the number of you whose souls said, pay attention, and you followed the snag. And here are some more reasons why. I went on reading on that same page after doing the search that Joy guided me to do, and it says there is a divine mirror that might be called the very mind of Christ. The Christ mirror fully knows and loves us from all eternity and reflects that image back to us. Exactly what all of this teaching has been about. And another quote from the book. There is in each of us an inner mirror. Today, many would just call it consciousness. So if you squirm at religious terms, they're synonyms. And poets and musicians might call it the soul, Richard Rohr wrote. Christians would call it the indwelling Holy Spirit. And on the same page, after searching for Dove and Holy Spirit, what do I find? This quote from Richard Rohr. What we are to be in the future is still to be revealed. And when it is revealed, all we will know is that we are like God. That to me is the same meaning as when Joy whispered, through a glass darkly. For now we see as if blindfolded because we chose to come here and wear these bodies for the experience of it, to be creative creators. And it's not always easy. But when we come to know that within all of us is a transcendent aspect, call it what you want. Transcendent means beyond the physical, beyond space and time. The light that flows through you is always here. And the more we can do to clear out the human wounds, the more we come to know that. And so don't leave me yet, because I have a little video to show you in a minute, to show you an example of the web. But all of this teaching this afternoon, everything I hope to share with anybody, anytime, boils down to what I call the awakened way. And it's 3 simple principles to live our lives by. The first one being that you, every one of us, is a divine expression of pure awareness, of consciousness, of joy. And you experience life as both a human and a physical body, and as a point of that one light of awareness, what we call a soul. And you have the free will to choose your point of view. Stories like the dove balloon that 24 hours later flies right up the hood of our car. These show us we're part of something so much greater. They show us this physical world is not as solid as it seems. They show us the second principle of the awakened way, that you're part of one big web connecting all that is. And that web goes across dimensions. The dividing line between physical and non-physical isn't even there for those in the spirit world. It's one spectrum of consciousness. It's all connected. We are connected. And the gift that followed that magical morning, when I heard the whispered voice say, "Follow me," followed by a magically reversed mirror image of a message that I typed myself, and followed by teaching from Joy, resulted in a reading just a couple hours later, just 2 days ago, for a woman whose son is across the veil. And she's in this webinar today. Her name is Teresa. I didn't know who I was given a reading to 2 days ago. I didn't know who she had across the veil, but Spirit knew, because we're all part of one big web. I'm still on a high from this magical moment with the reversed email, all these lessons about the mirror and bringing all of the teaching into this cohesive, understandable form. And I go into a reading and do the bless me method that I just taught you. Set aside all of that excitement and all that story to just be. And I sat with Teresa on Zoom and discovered that I had done a reading for her in the past. And I've shared her story over the years, because at that time I brought through her son who passed. I'll be sharing more of this reading in next month's monthly mentoring. But for now, we're just going to get to the magical moment. It turns out that 5 months ago, Teresa's second son passed. So she now has 2 sons across the veil. And he came through beautifully in that reading 2 days ago. And there was a magical moment that Teresa has given me permission to share with a clip from that reading. And you'll understand why I wanted to share it with you as I bring it up now. Let's see, I'm going to stop the share for a moment and try. Hi, everybody. I'm trying to get rid of the big box around everything. And it's still kind of sort of there. Here we go. Give me a second. There's my sweetheart as you're looking at my screen. There we go. I want to give you the full view of the video. Okay, so here comes the video. You might need to turn your volume up. All right, here we go. This is from the reading with Teresa. We already know she has a son across the veil. Okay. He's handing you a gift for some reason. Now let me see what it is. Opens it up and a dove. Oh, I get it. Opens it up and a dove flies out. Oh no, really?
2 doves. I got it. Can you see that? With a heart in the middle. That's him and his brother. I mean, how could that be? I got it on his birthday. I walked into JCPenney and it was just there. 17 days after he died.
Now that's a beautiful moment right there.
I was hoping this was going to be that sign.
And again, now this is another teaching moment forever and ever, because you have no idea where he's going with that. And instead of just showing me a dove, he hands that to you as a gift box. This is why I record everything exactly as it comes through. You know, so you see how beautifully that came from your son and not just pulling data out of the air, right? He gave you a gift. I love you, Mom. He says, clear as day, clear as day.
Oh.
There you go. I love you, Ma. Isn't that beautiful? The dove is the symbol of eternal life. All of these dove symbols, Spirit handed it to her, her son handed it to her as a gift box in my mind's eye, and out flies a dove. But don't you see, the gift is for all of us, because we are all connected here as souls. And that, if you'll allow me to go back to screen share, is the third message. As I bring this back in, give me a sec here. Well, let's just keep it up big here. I'll pull this back up. The third message of the Awakened Way, we find our way home through the heart. That's where you'll find your soul, not in the head. So things that you couldn't make sense of today, things that made you squirm, you're probably a little bit in the head. I love this quote by Richard Rohr. God loves things by becoming them. You are the arms and legs of God. You are the mouthpiece of God. Spirit, joy, call it what you want. But let's wrap this up today by reminding you, your point of view is everything. Are you going to choose to see the world as a human being, in a body, victim of your story, or realize through these stories that you're also a soul? Look for signs, ask for signs, celebrate the magic when they all come together, and align with your true nature. Practice gratitude. Be aware when you're anything less than loving and upgrade that. That's why we came here. Remember, we really are the light. Work on turning all of your scars into glowworms. And then you too can make that beautiful declaration that is so much better when we say it before we leave these bodies. I am free. It's what my friend Brenda learned, and it's why she started talking the day she crossed the veil. But my friends, this is the bottom line. We have always been free. It's only these blindfolds, these costumes, the skin we wear that causes us to think we're anything less than whole already. It's been a magical journey with you this afternoon. I hope it's given you some insights. At the very least, it allowed us to give a beautiful gift to those who've served our country. Now we can go out and serve each other, hopefully, by simply aligning with our true nature. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks to Lynette, thanks to Bev, thanks to Homes for Our Troops and Victoria who joined us. We'll make this video available to you in a couple days. We'll send it to you by email, but it's been my great honor to share these stories with you. I love all of you so much. Welcome, welcome the signs that come into your life. If an animal crosses your path, look up the meaning, connect the dots. Pay attention. Blessings to all of you, and goodbye.